Retro vibes for the modern mind. Welcome to Neo Nostalgia with Craig and Ray. Your hosts talk pop culture from the 40s to the 90s. Tune in, have fun, and heck, you might even learn something. Well, let's not get crazy. Take it away, Craig and Ray.
Hey, welcome to Neo Nostalgia. I'm Craig D'Onofrio. Who are you, sir?
I am Ray Keating. How are you, Craig?
I'm doing great. What are we about and what are we talking about today, Ray?
Right. What the heck is this Neo Nostalgia thing? Neo New Nostalgia, our appreciation for the things of the past. We enjoy these things. We hopefully learn some stuff and we pass on television shows, movies, books, music, all sorts of things that maybe a lot of people don't remember or they didn't look at in the first place. So that's why we're here. And today, and by the way, we cover 1940s to the 1990s. We don't go crazy. That's crazy enough.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And today, you and I are going to go back to the origins of our love of pop culture. We're going to go back to 1966, and we're going to look at some TV shows that debuted that year that, as I put it, changed our lives. Would you agree?
Well, television certainly changed my life. I don't know about you.
Listen, I mentioned before, I was raised by two wonderful parents and television.
And a
in
tube.
particular, reruns.
Yes, reruns.
Yes.
And most of the shows that we're talking about today, as a matter of fact, all of the shows we're talking about today, we experienced mainly in reruns.
Why? How old were you in 1966, Craig?
1966, I was finishing my second year of college at the age of 2. Yes.
Ah, nice. I was 3. I didn't make it to school yet, so you were way ahead of me.
I actually hated school from the very first day on. And so I just kept staying. That is weird, but yeah.
So we're going to dive into some key shows here. Right up front, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, the Batman television series, along with the movie that came out along with it. And we're going to talk about the Green Hornet. And then just a little teaser for folks that are supporters through Patreon. They will get Neo Nostalgia Extra, and we'll look at some extra fun shows there.
What is this Green Hornet that you speak of? I'm aware of the Kato show, but I don't know about the Green Hornet.
Well, Van Williams would be upset with you, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that later on. We're going to start off with Star Trek.
William Shatner stars as Captain James Kirk, Starship Commander, and Leonard Nimoy stars as Science Officer Spock, half Earthling, half Vulcanian.
Yes.
So for the people, that strange people, aliens to this world that don't know what Star Trek is or was, the original series debuted in September 8th, 1966. Ran for 3 seasons until early June 1969. Who was the creator?
Gene Roddenberry.
Right.
Yes.
Gene Roddenberry was the creator. Also, though, I want to make sure we mention somebody else here because we're talking about our appreciation for these shows that had such a great effect. Gene Coon, they called them the two Genes. He was the showrunner during much of the first season and for almost all of the second season. And he deserves, quite frankly, I would argue, just as much credit as Gene Roddenberry for making Star Trek what it is and what it was.
What is, for those of us who are in the dark, what is a showrunner? Does he run around the show?
Yeah, literally.
Like
when you hear, yep, they get in a wheel and they run, and the electric. So the camera.
That's what makes the cameras work. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So there you go. The obviously person in charge of episode after episode. Usually it's for an entire season. Sometimes it's for the entire run of a television show, but they're essentially the ones that call the shots and guide the stories and so on. And Gene Coon played a critical role. I mean, I would argue Gene Roddenberry was the creator of Star Trek, but, Gene Roddenberry was an interesting guy. He had some interesting ideas. Gene Coon gave Star Trek, I think, its teeth, its foundation. And I think people in the Star Trek world know that. He was highlighted by William Shatner in his book and Leonard Nimoy in his book and a whole host of other folks as being, one of the keys there. As I said, the two genes, and Gene Coon needs to be recognized. But again, for people that don't know, I don't want to 23rd century, right? The crew of the USS Enterprise, part of the United Federation of Planets, They have their famous mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. I've always wanted to say that in some sort of recorded session, so I did it.
I believe that's to go boldly.
Okay. Anyway, are we doing grammar police now? Is that what it is?
It's very rare that I get to make a point of grammar.
Are you
ever.
a grammar guy? All right.
No, actually I'm not. I'm terrible at it, but
so we had William Shatner, of course, as James T. Kirk, the commanding officer to the Enterprise. Leonard Nimoy as Spock, first officer, science officer, and DeForest Kelley as Leonard McCoy, the chief medical officer. When I talk about my take on this show, those three obviously are the key characters in this show. And I'm going to focus in on that. There you go. I love it. Very nice. You had others, of course. James Doohan played Scotty, the chief engineer. Nichelle Nichols played Ahura, the communications officer. Walter Koenig, who I met, interesting guy, played Pavel Chekhov, navigator of the Enterprise. And George Takei played Sulu, the helmsman. There are other folks that were, in the mix on a regular basis. But those are the biggies. Each episode, of course, started out with the Where No Man Has Gone Before speech. The music of Star Trek has lasted and been as influential as the show. Alexander Courage wrote the Star Trek theme. 79 episodes over 3 seasons. But it really didn't have the ratings. And it was canceled, and it became really a cultural phenomenon through syndication, through reruns. So that's a quick summary on Star Trek. I want your take on Star Trek. Did it influence you? What was your takeaway from Trek?
very, very much. Yes. I loved it as a kid. It was the space age. So everything space was amazing. Nonetheless, no matter what. Right. I remember there being a kid that I went to school with who had the gold James Kirk shirt.
Oh, nice.
And it didn't have the little logo on it, but man, it looked like James Kirk's shirt. And I just remember, yes, I see that. I don't remember James Kirk wearing a camp shirt though. But
yeah, no, but
anyway. Yeah.
Maybe on shore leave, who knows? Right?
When he was in Hawaii.
Right.
But well, let's see. That was Hawaii night. No, that was a whole other guy altogether.
That's right. Right.
Him. Yeah. But
by the way, what's his face? The star of Hawaii Five-0. No.
No, Robert
Jack
Conrad
Lord.
Was Hawaii Night, but Jack Lord,
Jack Lord had a shot at the role of Captain Kirk. So a nice little tie-in there for you.
Ooh, he would have been an interesting Captain Kirk.
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, I interrupted.
So they went with the Canadian instead.
They went with the Canadian.
Yeah. By the way, I managed to see Shatner twice. Once was on Craig Ferguson's show. I went to the filming of Craig Ferguson, and Shatner happened to be the guest. You don't know what you're going to get until you show up, and then all of a sudden it's Shatner. It's like, yes. And then I went to Shatner's one-man show.
Okay.
And that was about 10 years ago. Oh, gosh, probably more like 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And he was fantastic. I got to tell you. I mean, the guy could spin a yarn like no tomorrow. He was amazing. Tremendous.
Still is. He still is amazing at 94, I think, or 95. Incredible.
Yes. He was recently spotted in his car eating a bowl of cereal as he was driving.
I saw that. That's crazy. Anyway, so what else is your Star Trek takeaways from the original series there? Other than a bowl of cereal and William Shatner driving his car.
No, I always loved Scotty. He was one of my favorites. And one of those things that James Doohan, that's his name, right?
Yep. James Doohan. Yep.
Wasn't he a World War II vet who distinguished himself?
Yeah. He got D-Day. He earned medals and it's fascinating that time period because I don't know. I mean, I think of actors in a certain way, maybe, but when you think back in that era, so many of them served in World War II.
Oh,
it's really quite fascinating.
Yeah.
But there's been a few stories about him, particularly, have circulated around a couple of books and certainly online. Jimmy Doohan, wonderful and by the way, apparently he and William Shatner, he did not like William Shatner. And
Really?
William Shatner was surprised to learn this later on. And he was like totally stunned by it. So there you go.
Shatner probably thought he was just a capital fellow and just,
Yeah,
we're
right,
pals.
right.
What do you mean he doesn't like me?
I find stuff like that fascinating. And I think Shatner was, Leonard Nimoy used to talk about, well, Bill rubbed people the wrong way because he always wanted to make the show better. He and Leonard Nimoy were very close. They were like brothers. And they would have their spats, though, along the way, like brothers, I suppose. But, Nimoy would always say that Shatner, was just working to make the show better. And then everybody else on the show was just like, he wants more screen time and I'm losing screen time.
Yeah, with Scotty, my brother and I we'd yell when there was something going on. I'm giving it all she's got, Captain. It's like.
Yep. It's a great character.
Yeah.
And so one thing about that show is each character is very distinctive, right? And I think sometimes you can lose that in a lot of things today. Even in books, as an author, I struggle to make characters different. You don't want to fall into the same voice for everybody, but that was not the case on Star Trek, the original series. Everyone was very distinct in terms of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Scotty, and so on. So that was very well done. Very well done.
Yeah. Very interesting time in the world with the civil rights movement and everything else going on around that time. And I don't know, Ray, I know you have some thoughts about this. I think that there may have been an attempt in Roddenberry's mind to maybe in a very low-key way bring this to the public attention that, if you're green or blue or whatever, we're
Right.
all the same deep down inside.
Well, there was that one episode from season 3, which I can't remember the name of it. Season 3 was the worst. I went back in preparation for this and I counted how many episodes in season 3 are worth watching, and it exceeded my expectations. There were about 6. 6, maybe 7. But one of them is that. And these two, Frank Gorshin is one, and I can't remember who played the other guy, but they're two guys. One side of their face is white and one side of their face is black.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this is the big, if you want to call it these civil rights, or that issue came through in that episode.
One of them looked to me like Dickie Smothers from the Smothers Brothers.
Wow.
For some reason.
I don't think it
know
was,
why.
but
No, I don't think so. But I just, for some reason, that sticks in my memory.
But their whole argument was at the end, the kicker, they're battling. Their planet is, people have just killed each other and they're going to kill each other now. And the difference is that one guy had black on the right side of his face and the other guy had black on the left side of his face. So that was one of those messages that came through. And there were other ones like that. They touched on the Vietnam War in a very interesting way for the time. But I think a lot of, well, I'm going to touch on this when I kind of give my take. Well, you asked the question. It's kind of interesting because I think today you have people looking back on the show that it was like very, how do you want to put it? Left-wing, liberal, that type of thing. I would argue listen, good storytelling. I love good storytelling, and you can bring in all sorts of messages. I'll figure out what they are, hopefully, and I'll judge accordingly. But Star Trek wasn't really, I would argue, like particularly left wing. It was very balanced in many ways in terms of the issues that it would bring up. And quite frankly, it was very American. I mean, people talk about it as being kind of like a JFK show, and it was in a certain way. So I don't think it was necessarily, a left-wing show. I think it was very American. People argue, heck, the guy that's running much of Star Trek today thinks that the original series was atheistic, that it was a bunch of atheists. That the show, there are 3 episodes where it's quite the contrary. And one is probably one of my favorite episodes, Bread and Circuses, where they very much get into the issue of Christ coming to another planet, right? I played with this in my own novels, my most recent one. But so there are a lot of things that people assume about Star Trek that I don't think are true. Kirk as the womanizer. Now you can have some fun with that. When you would actually look, James T. Kirk was married to his career. he was married to the Enterprise. Sure, there were a few women here and there, but nothing like the assumptions today. You know, like there's always the argument, well, didn't he make out with a green alien? It's like, no, actually he didn't. He didn't do that. There is a green alien dancing around. That has to do with Captain Pike, and another one where they're trying to tempt Kirk, but they don't pull it off. So it's very interesting. He's not like the womanizer. He's very much, I mean, heck, James T. Kirk is a military guy. I mean, I know that, the United Federation of Planets, their exploration, not military, but, they have some nice weapons, and, they're all have naval, captain and admiral and so on. So it's interesting, I think, this is why it's important to go back to wonderful shows like this and get the real scoop and not what somebody else is telling you. And, to finish my take, listen, Star Trek came into my world in reruns, every night of the week at 6:00 on WPIX Channel 11 in New York. And I watched them over and over again. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You mentioned meeting Kirk. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. Myself and 2 friends of mine went to one of the first big Star Trek conventions in New York City, and all of the all the stars from that show, the original series, were there. And that was a lot of fun, and I still have fond memories of that. I did meet Shatner a couple times. My son and I, Jonathan and I, did picture session with him, and we got to talk to him about when he gave gave Jonathan an autograph of a phaser, which was very, very cool.
Nice.
I also was on a radio program. And as I'm coming in, in terms of my economist world, the guest before me was William Shatner. And he's walking by me, walking out. I was like, wow. So I had to say, hello, Mr. Shatner. And he gave me a nice hello, and off he went. So that's kind of cool. But the other part, Star Trek was pitched by Gene Roddenberry originally. People forget this as, a wagon train to the stars. That's how it was billed. It was inspired a lot by, some of the movies from the 50s, Forbidden Planet. If you watch Forbidden Planet, somebody said, and I agree with them, said that that's like a pilot for Star Trek. And in many ways, you can argue that. But in the end, all of that stuff, a show like that lasts for a whole host of reasons, but it has to have quality storytelling and characters that you care about, whether you like them or not. But the trio of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy made that show. Their interaction, Kirk and Spock and McCoy always arguing and bantering about things, and Spock taking the logical path, and McCoy talking emotionally but also very caring as a doctor, right? So I think that relationship and the quality of the stories, was really why that show became a cultural trendsetter, right?
It'd be interesting to see how many times McCoy actually said, "I'm a doctor, not a fill in the blank."
Somebody
right?
did. I mean, if somebody has done it, it's actually a pretty significant number of times. It's fascinating. Yeah, right.
I'm a doctor,
Jim,
not a nuclear physicist. I'm a doctor, not, yeah.
Yeah, I like there's one where he's they've got that underground creature that tunnels through rock, and it's injured. The Horta. I don't remember the name of the episode, but I remember the name of the alien creature. And it's injured, but it has to be kind of helped because it's like almost like rock. So McCoy had one of his lines. He's like, "I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer." So it's classic stuff.
Well, who can forget the Trouble with Tribbles? That was the little Tribbles, the little furry guys, right?
The funniest
Overrun.
That is probably the funniest Star Trek original series episode. And I love that. I love that one. I also love, along the comedy lines, there was one called A Piece of the Action, where they went to a planet and the whole civilization, a human went there in the past and had a book about gangsters of the 1920s and 30s. So the whole society, the whole culture was based on that. And that was just, that was a very, very, very Star Trek episode, and yet a lot of fun. It was very, very funny. So, and we'll get into Star Trek episodes, I think, on another episode of our show, because I think we would. I mean,
you got to revisit that.
Time does not allow us.
As we get into the 90s, also, I'm sure we'll have to compare Next Generation to the original as well.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Of course,
Voyager.
then you have Riker,
Deep
who
Space Nine.
was a bit of a rake, as it were. So
I-
more so than Kirk.
Somebody said that both William Shatner and Jonathan Frakes, who played him, they commiserated on the fact that Gene Roddenberry gave them both the same line. And it was along the lines of either do it more like a cowboy or do it more like John Wayne. So anyway, if you're one of those strange people that haven't watched Star Trek, the original series, you need to, especially if you like any kind of science fiction. And if you're an old fan and you haven't revisited it, do it, because there's just so much there. Some great storytelling.
But as we move on, before we move on to the next show,
Right.
aside from Captain Kirk, who is your favorite character?
Wow. Well, it's either Spock or McCoy. And I'd have to say I probably have a softer spot for McCoy. I just like that character. Yeah. There's just something about him. He's very passionate. And his arguments with Spock, both sides are wonderful, but he just seems to really bring an energy to it. DeForest Kelley was wonderful in that role. I think, there's a very quick story, then we'll move on to Mission Impossible. But one of the Star Trek movies, and I can't remember which one it was, but might have been the one that Leonard Nimoy directed. He directed one or two of them. I can't remember. I have to do my homework on that. But whatever one he directed, whether it was first or second, he insisted to Paramount that DeForest Kelley be paid $1 million because he was grossly underpaid compared to Shatner and Nimoy. And Nimoy stood up for him and said, yeah, this ain't happening unless you pay him that. So that was very cool.
Wow.
That was very cool. Yeah.
That is very cool. Yeah.
All right, Mission Impossible.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Jim.
Again, 1966 debuted.
Wait, not the one with Tom Cruise.
We're gonna it's tied into it, amazingly so.
Okay.
But debuted September 17th, 1966. It ran for 7 seasons. A lot of people don't know it was revived in the late 80s, in 1988 for 2 more seasons. And it did, obviously, as you mentioned, inspire the 8th theatrical motion picture starring Tom Cruise. It was created by a man named Bruce Geller, who, get this, he also created, I don't know if you remember this, detective show of this, I guess the 70s, early 70s, Mannix.
Oh yeah, Mannix, yeah.
Yeah, so he created that as well. And real Mission Impossible about the Impossible Missions Force, the IMF, not the International Monetary Fund, as I would say as in my economist world. The Impossible Missions Force, covert government agents. They did all sorts of interesting, sophisticated ways of fighting, governments, hostile governments behind the Iron Curtain, third world dictators, even corrupt industrialists and crime lords. It was interestingly, it was a show that just focused on those missions, and purposefully, they never told you anything about, or very little about, the personal lives of the characters. And they did that on purpose to kind of keep the mystery of it. A lot of people don't realize, right? Everybody thinks of Peter Graves as Jim Phelps. He did not come on until the 2nd season.
Oh.
Yeah. And by the way, Peter Graves is the brother of Gunsmoke's James Arness, which is interesting. But he didn't come on till the 2nd season. The 1st season, that role, not the same character, but that role of running things was done by Stephen Hill. The character's name was Dan Briggs. The story there is that Hill was Jewish and wanted not to work on, what would it be, Friday evening and into Saturday. They said, yeah, in the contract, but then they just found that they couldn't. It wouldn't work. So after the 1st season, he was out and Peter Graves came in. the key actors and characters, there was Barbara Bain, who was Cinnamon Carter, who was a model and a spy. Martin Landau was Roland Hand. I think everybody, if you remember the show, you like that character, the master of disguise. And by the way, Martin Landau and Barbara Bain were married for many, many, many years, decades. Peter Lupus was Willie. Greg Morris, of course, was there for the whole Willie and Greg Morris were there for those 7 seasons. Interestingly, after people left, there were people in and out. Leonard Nimoy from Star Trek came in and played the Great Paris for a couple of seasons. People like Sam Elliott was there for a season.
Really?
Yeah. Leslie Ann Warren, Linda Day George. So a whole host of folks played, and the main cast, even for a season or two. And there were some wonderful guest stars from the time. So that was the show, and it did lead into, as I said, 2 seasons where Peter Graves was still Jim Phelps, playing the same exact character, a different team. And then, of course, the Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt movies came along starting in 1966. And how many? There were 7 or 8? 3, 6, 8. 8 movies. I love those movies. And part of it is because of my appreciation for the original show. And there is a link where John Voight is in the first movie and he's playing Jim Phelps. And Peter Graves turned down the role because, spoiler alert, Jim Phelps does not turn out to be a good guy by the end of that movie.
Right, that's right.
And and Peter Graves was like, nope, I'm not doing that to that character. So kudos to Peter Graves for doing that. But the Tom Cruise movies I love. The only one I don't like is the second one. I pretend that doesn't exist. But all the other ones I like a lot. So, all right, there's the rundown. What's your take on Mission Impossible?
Well, for one, they're always overthrowing some Castro-esque regime, which is fun. And I don't know why. Anytime I think of Mission Impossible, I think of someone wearing brown shoe polish, impersonating some third world banana republic dictator.
The masks, right?
Yes,
you have to have the masks.
Right. Yeah. So there was always that. And I thought that it was a fun show. Always the intrigue. I can't say that I've seen it lately. Have you watched it? This is one of the things that we talk about on occasion, is how does it hold up?
Yeah.
And of course, all the sitcoms from the 70s do not hold up, but
that's true. I mean, I'm sure we'll
shows
find
like
one or
Saint
two
that does, with Simon Templar. But yeah,
I think I have watched it. I think Mission Impossible, it definitely holds up. I will say that, so it's worth going back, right? I'm urging people to watch it. But it is a different pace from the movies, right? It requires an attention span.
Something lacking. Yes.
So, but I think it does hold up. I mean, things that people only know the movies don't realize that, the basic song comes from the original show. The sequence of lighting the fuse, going across the screen, and you see flashes of the movie. That's from the television show. They did that with the television show. And the fact that Cruise and those people kept that, where you're at a movie today, right, in recent times, and you go and you watch it, and they got the fuse, they have this great opening, and then the fuse is lit, and the Mission Impossible song kicks in. Ray's ready. He's excited. And they throw in those scenes from what's coming, which to me is just fascinating that they do that. So, the song, it's one of those fascinating things where I think the show is wonderful. I enjoy it. It's worth revisiting and holds up. But there are also certain things, right? Television shows or movies that there's music just can make something better, even better. And that Mission Impossible theme song does, at least for me. And that weekly, and then for every movie, that fuse going across while they're playing that music, I think is just wonderful. And that, by the way, that music was written and composed by Argentine composer Lalo Schifrin. So we should give that man credit because that is a wonderful wonderful song that makes the show even better. So yeah, go back. I would go back and watch it. It holds up. As I said, it's a slower pace. You need an attention span, but it's well worth it. And if you appreciate the movies, go back and find out what the source material was. It's good stuff. So
Very good. What's next on the list here?
all right, let's go to Batman.
Batman.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Batman 1966 television show debuted, right? And the movie. So ABC got the rights to Batman in 1964, and they turned to a man named William Dozier, TV and movie producer. He turned out to be the creator, executive producer of the Batman 1960s television show and the movie. And guess what else he did? He was the narrator who did all the guy that created it, the producer and so on. He was that voice who said, come back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Yeah, that was, yeah.
No kidding.
So
he had a great
did
voice.
Yeah.
Well, he was voice for that.
Yep. There were 3 seasons.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Yeah.
And it came on as a mid-season replacement in January of 1966. It ran till March of 68. And of course, you have who? You have Adam West as Batman Bruce Wayne, the wealthy businessman. He has Wayne Manor. And of course, his ward, Dick Grayson, who is Robin, and he's played by Burt Ward. I found it interesting because I don't know these names, but Alfred, the butler, Alan Napier played Alfred. Do you remember Aunt Harriet?
Aunt Harriet, yes.
Yes, played by Madge Blake. So Aunt Harriet. And Commissioner Gordon was Neil Hamilton. And Chief O'Hara of the Gotham City Police Department.
Yes, that's right.
Stafford Rep. And then in the 3rd season, due to waning ratings, they brought in Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, who was played by Yvonne Craig.
Right.
And then, so you have that, but then you have this, the rogues gallery, the villains for Batman 60 in that era. And it's fascinating who played these characters, right? The Joker was Cesar Romero.
Right.
He wouldn't shave his mustache off. So if you watch closely, the makeup is just over his mustache.
Right. Yeah.
The Penguin, Burgess Meredith.
Right.
The
Rocky.
Riddler. Yeah. Right. The Riddler, Frank Gorshin. Also I found out one episode, the Riddler was played by John Aston of the Addams Family fame. Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting. And then Catwoman, of course, played by 3 people. Can you name the 3 women who played Catwoman?
Ooh, I'm going to get it wrong. Berta Fleck? Is that? No, that's not right. What? Yeah, help me out.
All right. Julie Newmar.
Yeah, that's right.
Lee
We just
Mary-
saw it. She was 5'11". She's very tall and a ballerina. 5'11" ballerina. Dude, yeah.
Interesting.
Go figure. Yeah.
Lee Merriweather played Catwoman for the movie in 1966. And then Eartha Kitt.
That's who I was trying to think of.
Came in and played Catwoman as well. So the other one that fascinates me on the villain side is Vincent Price played Egghead.
Yes.
So
the guy who played King Tut.
Oh, wow. He was, I just saw that episode. Or one of the episodes that he was in.
I can see his face. He was a funky guy in real life.
He was in Robin and the Seven Hoods. How's that for pulling something out of nowhere?
Yeah.
With Frank Sinatra and the guys.
Nice.
Now, the movie, this is fascinating. So the show was so popular the first season that they said, okay, we're going to stick a movie in before we do season 2. A guy named Leslie Martinson was the director. By the way, died at the age of 101 in 2016.
Wow.
He has his resume for directing television shows, episodes of television shows, is amazing. It's just, you got Maverick, Mannix, Ironside, 77 Sunset Strip, Mission Impossible, $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman. It just goes on and on and on. He only directed apparently 2 like one of those double episodes in the first season, but they said, we need you to make the movie. And the movie is bringing those main villains, the Joker, Catwoman, the Penguin, and the Riddler. And of course, Adam West and Burt Ward are taking them on. It's a longer movie than I remembered. I just watched it recently. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. But they filmed it, get this, in 27 weeks.
Wow.
So they just jammed it in. I mean, 27 weeks, 27 days. 27 weeks, like half a year. 27 days.
27 days is a lot more impressive.
Yeah. So, and it had, you always had the gadgets and everything, but it really came to full fruition with the Batman movie budget. They were able to spend some more money. So you not only had the Batmobile, and the Batcave, of course, but you had the Batcopter, the Batboat, all sorts of things like that came in with the movie. And I love when Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson get the call on the bat phone. It's ringing under that glass thing and it's beeping red, and they pick it up and they answer the commissioner's call. So what do they do in this library? They take a bust of Shakespeare and they flip it open and hit a button. The wall slides, the books slide away, and they go, they fly down the poles, and suddenly they're changed into their costumes. So, it's great stuff. Why? Because
the UN is vaporized.
Right. Well, yeah, it's just, there's just so much in there. And listen, I'll give you my take first this time. It's, when I was a kid, right, I loved this television show, and I was young enough. I didn't know it was camp, right? I didn't know it was campy. I just thought it was great. Wow. Look at the Batmobile and the Batboat and the Batbelt and the Batcave, all these things. And I went as Batman for Halloween, probably 6 or 7 years in a row, man. I was not giving up the cowl, as they say.
You were all in.
That's right. I think I finally broke it. Here's a weird thing. I broke it by playing Oscar Madison from The Odd Couple. So I don't know what to do with that.
There's a story there. Wait, did you dress as Oscar Madison for Halloween? I dressed
as Oscar Madison for Halloween. Yes.
Maybe this is a conversation you should have with a therapist.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a bit late now. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I was enthralled by the show. And then, listen, I had a crush on Batgirl as a young
who didn't?
Kid.
Yeah.
But that show led to, in many ways, my love of comic books, which actually lasts to this very day. Batman, that was my introduction to Batman. And he's my number 2 guy behind Captain Kirk. But the thing about this show and movie on a rewatch, right, that I watched a few episodes and the movie, is that now at this age, and listen, even younger Ray in his 20s or whatever, didn't fully get it. That it's more than camp. This is just outright comedy. I mean, it's, I don't know if you remember the Naked Gun movies and Police Squad. This is the Naked Gun and Police Squad for superheroes. It's just, I watched it by myself the other night, the movie, and I was laughing out loud. It's just so over the top. It's more than camp. It's just, crazy humor. You got the double entendres and everything else, but it's hysterical when you watch this. And I like thinking about this because Batman, right? Today, you think of, you've got movies, the brooding Batman, and so on and so on. And I love them all. Okay. I love them all. I like having a variety of Batmans to choose from. But the reality is that there were serials in the 40s of Batman, which maybe we'll cover on one show. But the first full-length Batman movie was a straight-up comedy. That's what it was. And that to me is fascinating. It's fascinating.
Him running around on the pier with that bomb. And it's like everywhere he turns, he cannot get rid of this thing. Yeah. A lady walks by with a stroller. It's like, nope, can't throw it in the stroller.
There are nuns. There are nuns that walk by.
Nuns.
He goes to throw it in the water at one point, and there are little baby ducks, so he can't do that.
Right. Yeah.
And he actually uses the line, "Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb." And I love that line. That's a great line. So it's just, I argue, it's more than camp. It's just straight up comedy. It's along the lines of of Naked Gun and Police Squad, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. And if people today, you get people that obviously are super nerds in various aspects, and they get upset about this little thing in a Batman movie or this little thing, throw it all out and pull up Batman 66 movie and just laugh, because it's just funny.
It is good, funny stuff. The cheesy rubber shark hanging off the
right, but luckily in his bat belt he had shark repellent.
That's right, his bat shark repellent. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, so that's all right. This is going to be the last one.
All right,
we're going to cover, and it's related. It's the Green Hornet.
ABC, where I'll be seeing you in the Green Hornet. I am Bruce Lee, inviting you to join me every Friday night on most of these ABC stations.
Yes.
And I remember going back a few years, and we were talking, it must have been on, and I had a Green Hornet shirt on, and you were like, I love the Green Hornet. So I did too. And it came out the same year as Batman. Van Williams as the Green Hornet / Britt Reed, publisher of the Daily Sentinel newspaper. And of course, Bruce Lee as Kato, his trusty butler, chauffeur, and co-crime fighter. So you had the Green Hornet and Kato. It only did one season. Again, premiered in September of 66, went for one season. And it's a fascinating show because they tried to do it more straighter than Batman, but it was the same creator. It was Dozier who did this as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, same guy, and the voiceovers. That's him again, doing the voiceovers.
I remember there being like a crossover, at least in style, if not substance. Yeah.
And there were actual crossovers. Okay, so this is. I watched these 3 episodes. One was, remember when Batman and Robin would walk up the side of a building and somebody would open a window?
Right. Sammy Davis Jr. was my favorite.
Sammy Davis Jr. did that. Well, at one point with the King Tut in this episode, the window opens and it's the Green Hornet and Kato, and they have a little chat with Batman and Robin.
I do remember that.
That was a quick one, but then they had 2 full episodes. They always, for the most part, did the double episodes, come back tomorrow, same bat times, as we said, same bat channel. So it was the Green Hornet and Kato coming to Gotham City. It turned out that Bruce Wayne and Britt Reed were old buddies, rivals for women and so on. So all that comes through in the episode. This is probably the Batman show being pulled closer to, more of a straighter thing, a little less camp, but also the Green Hornet and Kato being pulled into the camp. But it's actually, I watched that, and it's a wonderful episode. I mean, and as a kid, I mean, seeing that crossover was just like, wow, that's fantastic. And I remember seeing it obviously in reruns. But I want to get your take, but I'll tell you my take real quick on this show, because it's fascinating. I love the crossover, but the Green Hornet was really hard to find in reruns.
Yeah.
I mean, you found it here and there, and as years have gone by, it hasn't gotten easier.
No.
So I'm one of those weird people that, I'll be flipping around the channel and like some channel with reruns made for people that, well, okay, my age or older, and all of a sudden it's a Green Hornet episode. I will stop and I'll watch it because it's just so hard to find that. And by the way, we mentioned the Batmobile and all the gadgets. Green Hornet and Kato, of course, had the Black Beauty,
right?
Which was a heavily armed vehicle.
Was it a Lincoln Continental?
Yeah, I think so. So. I thought I wrote that down somewhere, but I don't see it. So it's hard to track down. Now, I'm going to make a confession, and I'm going to hand it over to you. I went an unsavory route, and I supposedly have a Blu-ray of the entire season heading my way. I don't know if it's I'm an IP guy, an intellectual property guy, a copyright guy. I didn't ask any questions, so it's coming my way. I'm not sure what Batman and the Green Hornet would think of this, but it is coming. Now, what is
the
your
FBI will be in touch with you soon.
All right. What about you and the Green Hornet, my friend?
You know, I was just struck by the fact that they both, Batman and the Green Hornet, have the same superpower, being rich.
It comes in handy when you're fighting crime. Absolutely.
That's their main,
Yeah.
Superman, he's got superpowers. Green Lantern's got his superpowers and so forth and so on. They got rich is their superpower. And so because they're rich, they can afford the gadgets.
Yep.
And of course, then, the Green Hornet can afford to hire Kato, which is one of his superpowers also, having Bruce Lee. So, and
it's worth mentioning that really launched Bruce Lee's career in America.
Huge. Yes.
I mean, that was it. I mean, he was off. He was the martial arts guy, right? So anyway, go ahead, continue.
Well, Bruce Lee got ripped off. He was lined up to do Kung Fu, the series Kung Fu.
Huh.
And he got ripped off because of basically racism, unfortunately. Right. And David Carradine got the nod as the half Asian guy, supposedly, and I guess Bruce Lee, there was no end to the butthurt that he felt on that, and rightly so. Yeah. Because say what you will, I don't know. We talked about that movie with Brad Pitt.
Don't do this. Yeah, we know we're talking. See, you're going to do this.
Yeah, it's set in the 1970s, and Dude, Brad Pitt is a stuntman, and he ends up in a fight with Bruce Lee.
Quentin Tarantino's movie.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
It'll come to me after we're done.
Of
anyway,
course.
Oh man, that's irritating. So anyway, I don't know if Bruce Lee was as magical of a martial artist as they always portrayed him to be. He really was a phenomenon in many ways, I know. But if nothing else, he was an ultimate showman.
Yeah.
And, he would have been amazing. Of course, I loved Kung Fu growing up, and David Carradine. I wanted to be Kwai Chang Caine for a year or two, probably. But I think that it would have just been magical had Bruce Lee gotten the nod to that. And his whole life might have taken another trajectory, and maybe he'd still be around. I don't know. Who knows?
It's also the other thing about they tried harder with the story. I will say I want to touch on this real quick before we wrap it up with the Green Hornet, because you have Britt Reed, right, newspaper publisher, rich guy, his right hand man, Kato, and the Green Hornet's not a straight up hero. If you remember, the Green Hornet plays it that they're criminals. The Green Hornet and Kato are criminals, and they use that to infiltrate criminal syndicates and so on. And then from the inside, without, giving themselves away to either the police or the criminals, they wind up catching the bad guys. Although one of the main characters that knew this was the district attorney. I can't remember the character's name, but that was in the show that he knew who they were, as did Britt Reed's secretary at the Daily Sentinel. So there you go.
There you have it.
The Green and I'll just say that part of the interest for me with the Green Hornet is that mystery, that it's been so hard to find and to be able to get, to watch all of the episodes. And I know I haven't watched all the episodes, but to just try to, it's like a little superhero adventure to try to find these episodes. So that's fun. But what I've seen, again, I think it's well worth watching if you could track down the episodes, that is. So
every now and then you'll come across something like a New Year's Day TBS Green Hornet marathon or something like that. And
it's not even TBS. It's a smaller station, but yes, you do come across it. Right.
Set your DVR to record that if you have a chance. By all means do. Now I want to go home and just search on Green Hornet and see what I can find.
Well, 1966, my friend, right? A big year for us, I think.
It was a big year.
And by the way, there are a few other TV shows that debuted that year that we will talk about in Neo Nostalgia Extra for our Patreon members. So please become a member there. Become a supporter. You can check it out. And if you're not a supporter, come on. Like, what's the deal? We could use your support. and
That's
you
right.
get some cool stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, do join us for that. We'll talk about shows like The Time Tunnel, Tarzan, maybe we'll talk about Tarzan. That was 1966 also. We got a list.
Okay.
We got a list.
But
some
you
of
didn't
them
bring
are
it to
shows I've
rehearsal.
never even seen.
Dude, you didn't bring it to rehearsal. Somebody tell this guy to bring it to rehearsal from now on, okay?
You know what?
There you go. All right.
Yeah, I missed the dress rehearsal.
This has been fun. This is our first kind of full-fledged episode. I'm glad that we covered this pivotal life and a year in the lives of Ray and Craig. So this has been great.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Neo Nostalgia was not recorded in front of a live studio audience.